Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and I wanted to talk to you today about a lot of different controversies that are surrounding the Wonder Woman 1984 movie. Again, I'm not trying to, I want to make very, very clear that I'm not trying to defend this movie. I think it's absolutely indefensible. And I'm going to go into some of the terrible decisions that Patty Jenkins made during this video. But I do also want to talk about some of the common complaints that are that have been levied against this movie. And I'm not doing it because I'm a Wonder Woman fan, which I am. I'm a DC hardcore fan, DC hardcore fanboy. I'll defend a lot of things with DC, but when they do my characters wrong, like this, I don't play around, and that's why I've said in a previous video. To me, Patty Jenkins has to go, and if they go ahead with another Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman, I think it will be a terrible mistake. She has some big ideas, but unless she is willing to, actually have a little bit of hubris and get a proper screenwriter in to make those ideas work, then she doesn't really do. The fact that she didn't know that she should do this, I'm not even saying. A lot of people are saying, that the writer of Wonder Woman 1, Alan Heinberg, should have come back to Wonder Woman 2, and it would have been better. I don't believe so. I've read the script of Wonder Woman 1, and a lot of it is crap. And clearly, Patty Jenkins did a lot to fix it. But what Alan Heinberg did do in Wonder Woman 1, despite having very, very bad jokes and things that were corny in it, which Patty Jenkins fixed as a director, one thing he did do is he wrote naturalistic dialogue. The dialogue didn't seem like fake conversations, like grade one. When you first write a screenplay, and you use a lot of exposition and unnaturalistic conversation to convey a particular kind of theme, like friendship. This was all over Wonder Woman 1984. For instance, the thing I was talking about with conveying friendship, Wonder Woman is in a bar, and this is going to be heavy spoilers as well, this discussion. Wonder Woman's in a bar or restaurant with Barbara Ann Minerva, I think everyone's seen it now. And we all know Kristen Wiig is the one who plays Barbara Ann Minerva, and Gal Gadot plays obviously Wonder Woman, and they're in a restaurant together very early on in the movie, and they're having a conversation, and the conversation is starts off with Gal Gadot saying, "Oh, you're so funny, you're the funniest person I've met in a while." Now, if you want to do naturalistic conversation, what you would do is you'd actually get Barbara to actually say something funny, right? And then, Gal Gadot laughs, and then that line would make sense. But instead, they wanted to take the cheap, quick route and just have Barbara, Wonder Woman, or Gal Gadot just convey that, they're getting closer together by saying some, generic line or whatever. But let me get to the meat of this. So there are a number of different controversies going on around the film. And one of the controversies specifically is that part of this film is that it's a body swap film, right? And people are, having a go at Patty Jenkins, and this I have to defend her on. Because the Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine, comes back in another man's body and possesses that body, that therefore Wonder Woman therefore raped, or sorry, I should have spelt it out, but Wonder Woman therefore somehow sexually assaulted that man because she didn't get consent for them to use his body. Now, clearly, if you look at the film itself, what it's saying is that Diana is only seeing Steve Trevor. There's no, I don't think, any kind of moral discussion really that says that they are condoning this or anything like that. But I think one thing that we have to make certainly clear is that the physics of this situation are completely impossible within our reality. So, trying to impose a reality, in which somebody body swaps and literally their mind is possessing another individual, and saying therefore that that is, that the person who, if they sleep with each other, then they're somehow not getting consent from the person whose body it is kind of ridiculous, because the scenario can't happen in real life. And even if, like, let's just take the scenario to its fullest conclusion, right? So you've got an individual who is possessed by another person. You can't get consent from them to be able to use the body. So there's no way of them getting consent. And if you think about it, this is the love of her life who's just come back. And people are saying, well, if it was a woman, people would be outraged about it. And yes, people would be outraged about it. But the truth is, people are outraged about a lot of bullshit they shouldn't be outraged about. So if scenario B is that somebody who lost their loved one, a man who is a widower who lost his loved one, and that loved one comes back and possesses another woman's body, and he's so in love with her, and and only sees her. He doesn't see the other woman. He sees his lost wife, and they sleep with each other. The lost wife giving him consent to sleep with this new person's body. Then again, we're falling into the realm of, well, the woman isn't there to consent. There's nothing for her to consent to. She isn't that body anymore. It's the other person who is in that body who is that body, who is now that body. It just doesn't make sense. You can't try and formulate any kind of ethical argument around that situation. Plus, it's a movie. And so, another thing is people saying, oh, well, they go on all these adventures and put this man's body in danger. Well, it's a movie, and I will say this. A lot of people say, well, Steve Trevor could have just appeared out of nowhere, and he would have, and it would have, solved that problem. But there would have been less stakes, moral and ethical stakes, if Steve Trevor was just magically there. The stakes, the morality of it all, the fact that Diana was being so selfish in the movie, really rests upon the fact that Steve is being possessed by another person and she's losing her powers. So, Steve is possessing another person and she's losing her powers, so she can't save the world. Plus, she's doing this unethical, selfish thing to this man. And, they say that, she doesn't address it. She addresses it the very, very next morning by saying, and I thought it was a pretty bad scene, it was one of the terrible scenes in this film, but nonetheless, she addresses it the very, very next morning after they wake up, supposedly sleeping together. We don't even know if they did actually sleep together. They could have just hugged, and kissed, who knows. But they wake up, and Steve Trevor basically says, Diana basically says, I have to find out why somebody is possessing, why my boyfriend is possessing another man's body. She basically says that. It's very, very important. And here's the real fucking, so it's very important to that she morally understands. The big moral question is about her saving the world and her needing her powers to save the world. But clearly the secondary moral question and a moral question that's addressed, perhaps not as fully as some would have liked. I wouldn't have liked to have to sit there and listen to a very obvious ethical debate of whether she should continue allowing a man, Steve Trevor, to possess another man's body and continue living his life, at the detriment of somebody else. I think a big ethical discussion, unless it was done very well, would have been really unentertaining. And this is a superhero flick, an action flick, so I think the whole story, by the way, is preposterous. I'm just saying, within the bounds of this story, or what was done, there was nothing you can talk about there being some, I just think people are reaching. But it's specifically these male people who have a very, guys who are trying to equate how women would feel about something and sexual assault and whatever versus men, and they're trying to always show the hypocrisy around women and male dynamics, and there is a lot of hypocrisy. That's not a lie, but they're always reaching. They're always desperate to prove this kind of equivalency, and the fact is, any straight male would have wanted to sleep with Gal Gadot or Wonder Woman or Diana. There's no sense in which you don't even need consent from a guy. It's our natural biological, drive to want to do so. It's not the same necessarily even for women, but even in a situation where you do reverse the roles, and yes, I'll admit that I know for a fact if the roles were reversed that there would be a lot of complaints by women saying that this woman didn't get consent, but for, like, if a man sleeps with with another woman's body when they're mentally possessed by another woman. But again, I'd say to those people, they have too much time on their hands. It's a fucking movie. This couldn't happen in real life. If it could happen in real life, then maybe you have an ethical question to be asking, because then you could say, well, Wonder Woman the film is influencing people to act badly. But it's not influencing people to act badly, because none of this shit could actually happen. No one could mentally possess me so that a woman, my ex-girlfriend or whatever, would come and want to sleep with me and I couldn't give the consent. It's like, it can't happen in real life. So there's no sense in which this is some bad example being set for the real world. So whichever way you look at it, whether it's a woman's body being possessed or a man's body being possessed and them not being able to consent, it's fucking bullshit, because it's fictional and it can't happen. So it's not an example. If it could happen in real life, then maybe you have a point, because then you can say, well, Diana or Wonder Woman is influencing people to go and sleep with these bodies without consent. It's just a bullshit argument created by men who can't deal with their own lack of you know, I don't know what it is. But anyway, so let's move on from there. Another aspect that is really, really stupid, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because this movie is trash, and I don't want to defend it, but I will defend Patty Jenkins in this because I do think she's actually a very nice woman, and I feel, no matter what I feel about this film, that the heart and message of the film was good. It was just the writing that's bad. That's all that's bad about this movie. Even the plot could have been saved by good, coherent script writing, great conversations, the great witty banter. Everything could have been saved in this film if it was just some good, coherent writing that was given to Wonder Woman, but they didn't give her good, coherent writing so that the dialogue sold the reality of this very, very weird MacGuffin that was at the center of the story. All you needed was good dialogue and a set of rules that were followed all the way through this film, and everything else would have fallen into place, because there are good scenes, there are good action scenes, there is some good fan service there, but coherency in the rules of this MacGuffin and some good dialogue to set these characters up rather than the trash dialogue we got could have sold the reality of this situation, and that's about it. As for the other criticism that Patty Jenkins has been getting, it's about Donald Trump. The Trumpites are out again, out to viciously take down this film. They were out to take out this film before it came out, and now they're jumping on the hate wagon of this film that it very justifiably has got, because it's a bad movie and it's a terrible, terrible way to to evolve the story from Wonder Woman 1. And I can go into the reasons why it's a terrible way to evolve the story from Wonder Woman 1. But in the end of the day, these Donald Trumpites, MAGA, whatever, supporting individuals want to see anti-Trumpism in everything. A man has the same haircut. A villain has the same haircut as Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. And Patty Jenkins is criticizing them. But even by the text of the film itself, it doesn't even make sense. To me, honestly, I would have preferred it, even though I wouldn't have wanted Donald Trump to be the villain. I would have preferred Donald Trump to be the villain than what we got in this actual film. Because what we got in this film is much worse, less connected. It was so disconnected from the world and anything in reality. It has no balls, this villain. This villain has no balls. You don't even know what he's trying to achieve in the end of it. But, they did what they did, and fine. So now Trump people, everyone is trying to go, oh, it's this critique of Donald Trump and blah blah blah, and there was a wall that was erected at some point which had nothing to do with Maxwell Lord. It was a wall that was in Egypt. That it was just a completely different situation. It was a man saying he wanted his ancestral lands back or whatever in Egypt. Complete, nonsense of a critique against this film. There is no Trump, because even if there is a Trump in this film, and that's what Patty Jenkins is trying to say, even though she said, and many of them have said in interviews, they took bits and pieces from Trump from the 80s, but it was a mixture of different types of characters that are these kind of zany 80s businessmen who were highly unethical in some kind of way. So she took bits and pieces from different things and came up with this character, which is clear. You can see that in the film that this is an amalgamation of different types of archetypes of this kind of business person. This Maxwell Lord is as much Donald Trump as Max Schreck in Batman Returns was Donald Trump. I'm sure these Trumpites will go back to even a movie like Batman Returns. If it came out now, they'll be like, oh, Max Schreck is Donald Trump. They're so obviously trying to be Donald Trump. It's bullshit. It's just a fucking businessman, and she even makes the businessman quite sympathetic in this movie. So it's clear, unless she is sympathetic to what created Donald Trump, that in fact Patty Jenkins is not trying to, go off at Donald Trump. This was just an idea she had where she wanted to tell a moral message, and she needed some businessman who was into excess and greed to be able to be the villain at the center of the story for it to make sense.